well. If you were on a holiday, I hope that you're feeling nice and rested and ready for the new year. I had a fairly relaxed couple of weeks, I would say. I didn't entirely take 2 weeks off. It would have been nice to, but with exam season coming up, it was either that or taking the 2 weeks off, but then kind of having to study night and day in the lead up to exams, because I have some coming up really early in January, and so there's just not enough days to do all of the things, to like study all of the subjects mostly, and I would have had to push possibly an exam to February, which I didn't really want to do. So I took things quite easy and like quite relaxed, and I did take a few days entirely off, but I also took a few days where I was studying for like a couple of hours a day, which is still, it's nice because I felt like I was getting ahead with things, but it also wasn't as stressful as like doing a full day of studying, if that makes sense. But I also took like a week and a half off editing, so I'm just getting around to editing this week's video and next week's video, which is probably just going to come out like 2 or 3 days after this now, which is currently the 8th of January. And I wanted to record a voiceover for this video in particular, because there's no talking in any of the clips. I did have my mic with me, but I didn't have my usual tripod, and so it was all just a bit of a mess to set up, and I didn't end up using it. But I wanted to talk about some things, because my main goal for these 2 weeks, I suppose, other than actually spending some time with family and just some time to relax, was to hopefully get myself out of art block. I mentioned recently that I realized I think I've been feeling art blocked since I wrapped up the Inktober project, which kind of makes sense. I've always had that thing where when I wrap up a big project, I get into the and what do I do next? Like, what do I do now kind of state, and I panic a bit and I don't know what to do. And then it's happened before where that kind of thing leads to art block for me, and I think that's what happened this time. But also during the month of December, I was just really busy with uni things, and I was really just trying to get ahead as much as possible with my notes and preparing as much as possible for this exam season, that I wasn't thinking about art. I was still journaling, and that was like my creative outlet, but I wasn't thinking about art, and so I didn't really realize that I was art blocked until like the week before Christmas, essentially. So because I had a bit more time in these 2 weeks, I really wanted to try to get myself out of it. I think part of the issue with it was the fact that I just wasn't making things in general because I wasn't thinking about art, and it's difficult to like make a decision on where to go next based on nothing. Like if I'm making things and I realize that I don't like what I'm making, or that I only like a certain type of thing that I'm making, it's easier to make a decision on what to do next, because it's like, okay, I'm not going to go ahead and continue making things that I don't like, and I'm going to go ahead with this other thing that I am really enjoying instead. But because I wasn't making anything, I was just in a bit of a blank state, but I also didn't know what I wanted to make. And so what I really tried to do, and what was like the obvious first step for me, was to just draw something, no matter like what. I literally just picked a couple of random pictures and started drawing them, and you'll see that later on in the video. And that was really important for me to just get myself out of it. I have also been thinking a lot about zines over the past month, but not so much about like the content, but more about the idea of zines and like the layouts that I would like to explore. And so part of what I'm doing now is I printed out some pictures. I found on Christmas Day, we were going through some of my grandmother's old photos, and I found some that I wanted to keep. So I scanned them and printed them out, and I'm sticking them down here. But also I was reading a couple of articles, and excerpts from books about zines, and I wanted to write down some of the things that I'd highlighted from there, print out some of the layout pictures that I'd seen in the articles, and journal a bit about it. And so I've been doing a lot of writing about the ideas that I have, just trying to pull ideas out of my brain, which has felt very empty, but I don't think it has been. It's just I've not really stopped to capture any of the ideas that I've had, if that makes any sort of sense. And I think slowly that really did help. I now, kind of in retrospect, I am feeling a lot more inspired, and I think I have a vague idea of what direction I want to go in. It's not a very clear path ahead just yet, but I've taken the first steps, which is the most difficult part, I think. I think during the Inktober project, I just felt really good because I'd had the idea and I didn't give myself time to overthink it, because I only had the idea for the project a couple of days before Inktober started. The only thing that I really had time for was a very loose, put together a very loose plan of potential objects that I could draw and potential layouts that I liked. But it was all very quick. I think I spent half an afternoon working on that, and then I started drawing, and then I just didn't stop drawing for a month. And a bit, because I did also do a few extra illustrations in November. But after that, I was kind of at a loss, and I didn't have time to really think about what my next step was going to be, and so I just didn't take a next step, and I didn't make any art basically from the middle of November to the middle of December, which is okay. It's not the end of the world, it's not a big deal, but I obviously do want to get back to making art, and this is how I'm doing it, I suppose. I don't know if it's solid advice. I don't know if it's advice that could help anyone, but it's the kind of thing that I find interesting to hear from other people, hear about how other artists go through this kind of thing. And so I thought I could talk a bit about it at various points in the video where it's kind of relevant. So I'll catch back up in a moment when we do actually get back to art stuff. So on Thursday, as you just saw, my new notebooks that I use as my journal / commonplace book arrived. As always, these are from the brand Wanderings. I get this question all of the time. But they work just as well as like regular traveler's notebook inserts. These are just easier for me to get, and also a bit cheaper, and I do really like the fact that the paper is a bit warmer toned and that they have the rounded corners, so I just go for these. But I think they've got the same number of pages as the traveler's notebook ones as well, maybe like 4 pages less, but it's more or less the same. So those notebooks arrived, and I only had like 3 or 4 pages left in my previous commonplace book. So I wanted to set up this one while it was still kind of light outside so I could show you. And then later that night I finished writing in the last few pages, but I didn't film it because it was dark already. That's the struggle of filming in winter. But I had a few photos saved that I thought would be nice to print out to put on the cover of the journal. I've been sticking things to the cover of my commonplace book since the first one that I kept in 2023, and before that even, I think I've always liked having a little something at the front of my journals. And for the first few this year, last year at this point, I had some really big round stickers from Van Gogh paintings, I think. And I did that for the first 3, and then I felt like they were starting to all look the same, and they were kind of confusing to flip back through, and it was hard for me to distinguish them. So I started switching things around, and I put a sticker on one of them and an illustration from an artist I like on the other one. And then I wanted to put a photograph on this one, but I couldn't decide. I had like 3 or 4 that I liked, and I just couldn't decide which I liked better. And I also just feel like I like the round shape more, rather than like a rectangular image on the front of the book. And so I just picked up my iPad and started drawing something out. I had a color palette in mind. A lot of projects for me start with a color palette. And in this case, I just had this vision of like a light grey, dark grey, cream and orange palette that I wanted to work with. And so I just pulled a little something together this took me an hour and a bit, I think. I'm really slow at digital drawing, a lot slower than I am at traditional painting. I've been doing it for a lot less as well, but also, I don't know, it's different. And I just pulled a little something together, and I really like it. I definitely want to continue working in this palette. A little spoiler for you, I've done a couple of paintings in this palette that you'll see towards the end of next week's video, but also in the week after. And I don't know, this is a very spontaneous thing, and it's the kind of thing that I wish I did more, and that I just haven't been doing. I just had an idea and I went ahead with it, and I didn't give myself time to overthink it, which is part of the issue, again, why I've been, part of the reason why I've been art blocked. The little time I had after the Inktober project to think about what I wanted to do next, I essentially just used it to overthink things. And so that didn't get me anywhere. I think if I had just had an idea and started working on it straight away, even if I didn't have a lot of time throughout the month of December, I probably would have still done a little something here and there. But because I was just overthinking things and I didn't have a clear vision of what I wanted to do, I just panicked and didn't go ahead and didn't make anything. But also I think this was a good mood booster. It made me feel like, oh, I can still make things. And I've been wanting to make traditional paintings and drawings more than digital things. Even though I will still be working on stickers, I've been wanting to work on a big, everyday sticker set for 2 months at this point. And I have half a sticker sheet pulled together and 12 just sketched out, but not properly sketched out. So it's in the works. I don't know when it will be finished. But this was a good mood booster, I think, because it reminded me that I can make things. I couldn't even really work on a lot of traditional stuff at the moment because I didn't bring art supplies with me. So the only drawings that I did while I was at home for the holidays were done with pencil and pen, basically. And this one I did digitally, but I didn't want to keep working digitally. So I was still a bit like confused about where I wanted to go, and I just needed to keep going, but it was a good start. And I also just kept on writing about it. Something that I do a lot when I'm feeling kind of like this, but in general, as I'm working on painting some projects, is I alternate a lot between the project itself, or like the artwork itself, and writing. And it helps me to kind of bounce ideas back and forth, and figure out what my next step is going to be and what the next step after that, and put ideas on paper, because oftentimes what happens is as you're working on a piece, new ideas will come to you. And again, part of why the Inktober project was so great is because I was drawing so much and I was so in the zone for like a whole month that ideas kept coming, and it's like inspiration didn't leave for like a month, it just put a tent in my room and slept there for a month and a half, and I was golden. And then it just packed up and left. And I just stood there looking around for it and confused about it for the next month, essentially. So that's kind of what the situation's been. But I really, really like this little doodle, and it's a good start for what's coming next, I think. I did also want to mention, right as I'm starting to set up the new Commonplace book, I have new sticker dots. I've had them for 3 weeks, maybe a month, but I've only been using them in the weeks book. For the few entries that I have at the back of the weeks, I do sort of tag the pages as well with the same tagging system that I use in my journal. But these dots that I got are from Oh My Creativity on Etsy. I will leave the shop linked below. They took a while to ship, but they're really, really nice. There's a lot of them. And they come in 2 sizes on each sheet, so that's really nice, because then I can use the smaller ones in the weeks, and if I need to tag anything in the Hon as well, which I haven't had to do yet, but maybe I will, and then I can use the bigger ones in the Commonplace, so it's nice like that. I got 6 different colored ones. They're mostly warm toned, and then I have a green sheet for university related things, just because I've always tagged uni things in green, and so it just felt nice to continue down that route. And I just wanted to mention where I got them from, because I thought I might get questions about it, so that's where they're from. The shop will be linked below, and I'm really enjoying these. I think they look really, really nice together. It's a really cute color palette that I'm very, very happy with. I wanted to keep in this clip, even though admittedly these drawings are not particularly good, question mark, just in the sense that they're not bad drawings, but they're not what I want to make. I don't know, I don't love them. I don't want to make more of this, if that makes any sense, but I wanted to keep it in because I think it shows really well what I was mentioning earlier about bouncing ideas back and forth between a sketchbook and a journal. And also, I was just testing some things out. I made this sketchbook earlier in the week with some scrap paper that I had laying around from an old sketchbook that is spiral bound. I really don't like spiral bound sketchbooks. My preferred type of sketchbook is an A5, ideally with like paper that's slightly on the thicker side, so you can do some painting in there, or like if I have to do color swatches, I can do that, and it doesn't completely destroy the page, but ideally I would want like an A5 watercolor sketchbook, but like watercolor sketchbooks that are not spiral bound seem to be impossible to find. And so what I've just resorted to lately is making my own. And this is something else that I do when I'm feeling kind of art block, or something that I've done for a long time, is I make a small sketchbook and I challenge myself to complete it within a week or like 3 days or however much I feel like is a reasonable time for me to complete it in. I think I did like a small watercolor sketchbook around Christmas last year, and I have multiple of that kind laying around, which I think is quite cool, and I was hoping to do a similar thing here. I don't know if it's going to be quite that. I am going to fill it, like I've made it, I'm going to use it up, but this paper isn't great. It's not even great to sketch on, to be honest. I don't really like the way pens work on it either. So I'm going to use it mostly just for drawings probably, but not my best experiment. I have to say that. But I just pretty much opened up Pinterest and picked 2 pictures that I sort of liked and did a couple doodles out of them. And it seems silly, but it's the kind of thing that really helps me figure out what I don't want to do, and then from there it's easier to figure out what I do want to do, if that's a reasonable thought process. I hope it makes sense as I explain it as well, and it doesn't just in my head. But I thought I would keep it in, even though I'm not particularly proud of these drawings, just because it was an important part of the process, I suppose. There's some more in a second that are also slightly nicer doodles. I do like those. I don't know if I will turn those into anything, but I did enjoy working on those more. I did those in my regular sketchbook, which I think is an Art Creations A4 sketchbook that is terrible for painting in, as in it doesn't handle water. If you prime it, you can oil paint in there, but it does not handle a single drop of water. Like, the paper will buckle and fall apart. So I mostly just use it for sketching now, but I do like those better, and I think I'm not even sure if that was the next day or if that was the same day. I think it might have been the same day. You will see it in the video anyways, but it's a big improvement, and it's even just maybe a couple of hours later. So it's an interesting process to see until I look back on, because I don't do it like consciously. It's not something that I think about a lot. I just sort of do it, but that's part of why I really like making these kinds of videos, and I've always liked making videos where I draw and looking back at them, because it helps me learn a lot about my own process. So yeah, I guess that's enough rambling, but I did want to add a bit of insight on what I'm doing, because I don't think there's a lot of context to the video. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the rest of the video, and I hope you've been having a really, really lovely week. And I'll see you very, very soon this week with another video. Bye!